What's up, Weekend Warriors, to the Week 3 edition of the pod. I'm back, your commish, for another episode. Feels like I was just here. It feels like every day is football. You got Thursday, everybody's pumped up. And then a couple days later, Sunday, then there's Monday night. Couple more sleeps, and then Thursday's back. I can't believe it's Week 3 already. And so much has happened, so many injuries. We say it every year. It feels like, this has been the year with the most injuries, but gosh, some big names going down, and we will get into that here shortly. But a week 2 recap is important. The commish, Thursday Night Football, -6.5 Eagles. Vikings backdoor cover by half a point. Atlanta, -1.5. Beat Green Bay by 1. I lose by half a point again. The commish is 0-4 in his picks. I am seeing the board a little bit better. And I can say that because I told Brett, I'm pretty open with if I'm hot or cold. And last week I told Brett, I'm seeing ghosts, bro. Don't take my picks. I'm not feeling it. This week I think I'm starting to see the board a little bit better. And it usually takes me historically on this podcast, it takes me a few weeks to acclimate. So take my word for it or don't. I am feeling better. We'll see if I can improve. Now, fantasy picks, I have been better. I'm 7-3 on the season. I was 4-1 last week. I had Chris over Kevin. That somehow happened. Going into that night game, it was Pickens versus Chubb. Kevin had Chubb, and he was up a bunch of points. Kevin loses Chubb to a horrific knee injury. And now Pickens gets a 79-yard touchdown. Probably the worst beat possible for Kevin. Chris in the grave, thought he was done. Horrible season so far with injuries. Undertaker meme, Chris T is back, feeling a little bit more optimistic in the highs and lows of fantasy football. So one for the record books there with Pickens having 130 yards and a touchdown to beat Kevin. And Chubb shattering his knee. Crazy game. And Chris always roots for broken knees. So there you go, Chris. That's great for you. Valone over Brett. That happened. Valone can't do any wrong right now. Jake over PP. That happened. Jake, another team. Valone and Jake, top of the leaderboard. Ty over Ott. No chance. Otley won by 90. Came out, established dominance from the start. All his guys had touchdowns. High score of the week. Congratulations, Ott. And then Terry over Dean. That was the one that I got wrong. Let's go back and double check that. No, Terry did beat Dean. So which one did I get wrong? Oh, duh. I picked myself to beat Ott. Not a good look there. So Terry took care of business over Dean. 4-1 on the week, 7-3 overall. So I'm good at picking fantasy picks, bad at picking NFL picks. I'll save the Thursday night pick for a little bit. Let me get into the waiver wire, because the second week in a row that the waiver wire was a hot topic. Fab was a hot topic. Kevin, on his birthday on Wednesday, put in a bid for Jerome Ford, and Valone beat him out. I actually bid more than Kev, too. Time will tell, because it was a weird day because Hunt signed with the Browns right before waivers moved, and people had a little bit of time to adjust, and I think that might have scared some people on bidding on Ford. Me personally I think that Ford is going to be the lead back. That's what they've been saying. He looked good. He passed the eye test. He looked pretty spry in that game in his limited work on Monday Night Football. Kev, my philosophy would have been drop the hammer. I lost my guy. I'm 0-2. $75. I'm getting my guy. Maybe that's too high, whatever, but 50 plus would have got him. Kev was pissed he didn't get him. I don't think he bid enough. We'll see. Hunt could be the guy. Could be a bad pickup for Valone, but you can see through my actions, I'm a type of person that wants to put my chips on the table early. Let me get my guys. Go get my guys, as opposed to sitting at 1-6 with 80 fab left. But Kev could right the ship. We'll see. That was really the big pickup. There were other couple big pickups, but Hunt, I think, went to Pearson for 20. Little high, maybe. But he could. He has familiarity with that team. He was a fantasy juggernaut in the past. he could beat out Ford or at least get to a 50-50 split. So, that was week 2, little bit of fab recap. Let's jump into week 3. I'm getting it on the table right now. San Francisco 49ers, I think they roll tonight. I looked at the team total, and I thought the team total was going to be 30.5, 29.5. It's 27.5. The Giants let up 40 points week 1 to Dallas. Last week, 28 to the Cardinals. Niners at home, no Saquon Barkley. I think there's a world where the Niners score 27 on the nose, and that would be fitting since I lose all my bets by a half a point. But I'm willing to take that gamble. I think they score over 30 in this game, and I'm taking the Niners over 27.5 team total. I love that pick tonight. It's the start of something new. I am due. Follow me. Now, getting into the matchups this week. This, so far, in my opinion, is the best week so far for matchups. We have a lot of tight games, a lot of games I've had trouble picking personally. So, let's get into it. We'll start with Pearson versus Chris T. Pearson, I was a big fan of his team early on. I said it was going to live and die by the Browns. Deshaun Watson has looked bad. Very bad. Pushing referees, getting face mask penalties. You'd think a guy like that would try to lay low or make amends. He's not doing that. Derrick Henry showed a little signs of age, and Dameon Pierce has not gotten out of the gate hot. Neither has Dotson. So a couple things for Pearson that could have gone 50-50 haven't. Now, Rachaad White looks good. Pearson called a shot last week. He was going to have a big week. Did have a big week. Garrett Wilson, 80-yard touchdown last week. Obviously lost Rodgers. That's a hit, but he's been sustainable. Flip the script to Chris T for a second. A team, like I said earlier, Undertaker meme, the whole thing. Breece Hall, 0 points last week. That'll change this week. He gets Pacheco a little bit healthier this week. We saw George Pickens do what he does or do what he can do. Josh Jacobs, a guy who had negative yards last week. He should have better days. Somehow Chris won with negative yards there. So I'm going to check my notes because, again, this game looks pretty close. I did pick earlier when I looked Chris over Pearson. Pearson, Justin Jefferson, 150 yards in both games so far. He's due for a touchdown. I think it's a dogfight in that Cleveland game. I think Chris gets bounced back performances from Jacobs and Breece Hall. And I think Kelsey, who had a touchdown last week but really wasn't a Kelsey game, goes off this week. Maybe for a few touchdowns. I'm picking Chris. That's the way I see it. And I think Chris continues to climb out of his hole. I think I picked Pearson to lose all 3 weeks. Pearson, nothing personal. That's just the way I see it this week. I think I'm 1-1 in his game. So, moving on to, well, we'll save that one. I got a couple matchups of the week. Let's go Otley and Kevin. I think this one's pretty cut and dry. Otley didn't show up to the draft. He has a good team. Shocker. He does better that way. Mahomes, Bijan, James Cook's been involved. T. Higgins, 2 touchdowns last week. Calvin Ridley looks like a star. Tyler Lockett, 2 touchdowns last week. Zach Moss, touchdown last week. Hunter Henry, touchdown last week. The list goes on and on. Of course, he played me. He scored a ton of points. But he's got superstar running backs, wide receivers, and he's got Patrick Mahomes. Now, Kevin, I think you can right the ship. Silver lining for you. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm calling the breakout this week. I think anytime touchdown scored, take that. No, Montgomery, Amon-Ra banged up. He will get targets out of the backfield. I think he'll be featured in that game. No Chubb hurts, man. And speaking of Hurts, you have him on your team. Obviously, he's a stud. Right now, you got A.J. Dillon in your lineup. You still have Chubb on the bench. I don't know if you're hoping for some witch doctor magic there or something, but, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, we've talked about that. I don't want to be a dead horse. He needs a big game from Miles Sanders. He needs Hurts and Devonta Smith to hook up for big touchdowns. That happened last week. He still didn't win. I think Kevin at this juncture, anything can happen. Literally, the season can change in a flash like it did last week. But he does not have a strong starting lineup, and Otley does. This is a no-brainer. I'm going Ott over Kev here in Week 3. Now, this is one of the 2 matchups of the week. I'm going to start with the champion and Terry. And I've been on this pod continuing. I picked Valone to win last week, but the first week I predicted him to lose. He won by a point. He's got something about him right now. He's playing with a little edge, a little cockiness. He's second least points against. Otley's number 1, second least points against. And for context, he has 223 points. he's 2-0. Every other team that's 1-1, besides me and Chris, have more points than him. So he's got a fortunate schedule so far. His team is good. He paid up for Ford. Again, you heard my philosophy in the beginning. I like it. Get your guy, even though you have a good team. But he's 2-0 with Jamar Chase scoring nothing. That should scare people. Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson now throwing Ford in the mix. Solid running backs. Olave, Chase, Zay Flowers, stardom, and he's got Herbert. Malone has a good team. Now, Terry, speaking of good teams, Josh Allen. Tough matchup against Washington. I think he'll get it done. 2 banged-up wide receivers in this matchup. Ayuk for Malone. He's ruled out. Amon-Ra for Terry. We'll see what he does. But what should scare Malone is Thursday night matchup with McCaffrey. He scored in 11 straight football games. Tonight he'll make it 12. I think he's like minus 280 on the book. He's got Debo tonight with no Ayuk. And Waller in a game where they're going to be behind. Jordan Addison, sleeper in a shootout. Touchdowns in both games. Look out for him. And then Kenneth Walker at home against Carolina in a game where Carolina doesn't have their quarterback. I like Terry. If Malone pulls this out, I will not pick against Malone until he loses the rest of the season. I'm calling that out right now because the way I see it on paper is Terry should win this matchup. I'm going Terry, and we'll see if the champ's luck/magic continues on. The second matchup of the week is my dad versus my brother, Jake and Dean. Jake, top of the leaderboard. His team took a hit this week. All right, he has Madison and Akers went to the Vikings. 2 running backs on the same team. Not the best landing spot if you're Jake. He's got a lot of middling running back options, although Mostert, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I mean, he's going to be good if he plays. But some guys that Jake took a chance on, man. Mike Evans, he went way too late. Jake loves Mike Evans. He has, the number 2 wide receiver in football through the first couple weeks. Jake has the number 5 wide receiver in Keenan Allen through the first couple weeks. By the way, Tyreek Hill is number 1. So look out. He's got firepower. He's got 2 T Hills in his lineup right now. Taysom Hill isn't at tight end. My dad has a good team. He won week 1 with Burrow scoring nothing. He's got Cousins in this week in a shootout with Burrow's uncertainty. He got a huge week from Swift. Couple teams last week got huge Thursday night starts, Kevin and Dean, and they both couldn't pull out their matchups. Aaron Jones, questionable, should be back. Lamb just proving he's a bona fide all-star in this league. Just every week I look and he's catching passes. I think that my dad can certainly compete in this matchup, and I think he'll have a pretty good week, but there's no way I'm picking against Jake right now. His wide receivers are too hot. He has a good team. If Lamar could do anything, he's the 20th rated quarterback through the first 2 weeks. He did have 21 points last week, but if he could beat Lamar for Jake and some of these middling running backs / Mostert staying healthy, James Conner staying healthy, look out for Jake. I'm picking Jake here in this week's matchup. All right, let me give my other NFL pick on the books before I talk about my matchup with Brett. My other NFL pick's probably chalky. I'm taking the Chiefs minus 12.5. Before all this stuff with the Chiefs or with the Bears defensive coordinator and Fields talking about coaching, I still like the Chiefs. I think they're going to boat race them. I think the only way in this week that the Bears cover is if it's on a backdoor cover at the end of the game. That's just my opinion. Now, parlay that into my matchup with Brett. I am scared, that Fields could have a huge week. They're going to be down. He's going to be playing a little bit more free-spirited. He'll probably have a long touchdown this week. And for me, I'm making the decision to bench DJ Moore in this matchup, even though it could cancel out some of Fields' points. I have Metcalf, Brown, Diggs, and Puka. I mean, Puka's the guy. I love Puka. Most targets in the NFL history through the first couple weeks. People were making fun of me, spending my money. Look, it might still not work out when Kupp gets back, but again, go get your guy. It's proven fruitful so far. And playing Brett this week, looking across the way, I just mentioned 4 wide receivers, and probably my 5th, DJ Moore, are better than his starters, in my opinion. Hopkins, not been good. Sutton, they got a lot of mouths to feed in Denver, and Romeo Doubs. Brett's running backs are way better than mine. Kyron Williams, huge pickup. So if you're talking pickups, Puka, Kyron, and Ford would be the big ones. Kyron might be the best one out of all of them. He's the number 2 running back through the first couple weeks. So he scares me. Mixon getting things back on track scares me. And I'll tell you one player who scares me tonight is George Kittle. I think Kittle's going to have a big day. I might actually just bet him to score a touchdown because I think it's going to happen. No Ayuk. He's had a first couple weeks have been bad. So I think Brett's path to success is a big Kittle game tonight. His running backs continuing to produce. His wide receivers doing enough. And Fields having a big day. I'm betting against that. My team last week scored 76 points. You heard some of the names on my team. Diggs, Brown. A.J. Brown's going to score a touchdown this week. Let's get real. After all that stuff going on with him and Hurts, he scored a touchdown last week, got called back. So I think my running backs do enough, and my receivers get it done. I'm picking myself over Brett. Do I have to say it? Those are my predictions, guys. Enjoy your Thursday. I am going to have a special segment on here. I keep teasing it. Max Monday Night Picks. I got everything ready for her Monday night to help me with something, and she just was not having it. So she will help me. She'll make some picks. They'll be better than mine. I expect all of you to take them. So stay tuned for that. Guys, another podcast. The Content King has arrived. I will get 2 wins this week. Take my picks. And I'm getting a fantasy win. Commission's out.